There we go.
Yeah. Josh Waite, welcome to the Tiger Den.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. I was telling somebody a couple weeks ago, there's certain people that I meet that are very well-spoken and very collected when they speak. That's how you come across. And I tend to speak almost as fast as I think.
Yeah.
I've been built that way my whole life. So what I learn when I speak to people like yourself is to remind myself to slow down.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I think it's a compliment, but I would tell you that it can be a curse, and just the amount of overthinking and processing that I'm doing all the time up here before I say anything. So it may come across really polished, but what you don't see is the wheel spinning 100 miles an hour leading up to that I wish I could just communicate like you and just let whatever I'm thinking come out and be okay with how it's received. But that's not the way God made me. So
yeah. Maybe there's a happy medium somewhere where we're both trying to get to.
Somewhere in between the two of us probably is the sweet spot that neither of us will ever get to. So
very good. Well, let me open it up by saying this. I attended your Inspiring Generosity event a couple weeks ago. It was tremendous.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming.
Yeah, it gives me, I know the point is to give a lot of perspective. Let's just go ahead and dive into specifically, let's actually take it back. You are a financial advisor, and right. So you manage money.
Correct.
Take me back to before you started doing that. So we were talking a little bit off camera about your life before your career and kind of how you grew up. Where are you from?
Yeah.
Give me the scoop.
Yeah, I'm a small town farm kid. Grew up in between Elmwood and Farmington, so west of Peoria. My family, grandparents specifically, farmed a mile down the road from the home I grew up in and where my mom still lives today. And so, being close to the farm, I did a lot of what you would expect. No livestock type farm, but corn, soybeans. So cleaning grain bins, mowing yards, walking bean fields. They're fond memories that I have, but it clearly taught me work ethic. And so it's just something that I don't take for granted is a value that I have held on to, and just is how I operate. Is if you're going to do something, you're going to give it 100%. But then, growing up with my grandfather, the farmer, as kind of a role model, he's just a man of high integrity and humility, and I just always wanted to kind of emulate that in my life, and to the extent I've succeeded there, I really attribute that to him. So grew up on the farm, went to Elmwood High School, graduated. Sports were a big part of my life growing up. Mm-hmm. I joke I'm 6'4". My graduating class was 35, 40 kids, and so if you're 6'4" and your class is 30-some people, you play basketball. So I played a lot of basketball. I'd like to think I was pretty good. My son would say he's now better than I am, but we have regular battles on the court to determine that still. But went to ICC a couple years. Wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Had a general idea that finance was an area that I was interested in. But
are you just prone to think in numbers in terms of?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I just always had an interest in the markets. I would also say growing up in a blue-collar, middle-class family, I'd be lying if I didn't see finance as an avenue to do well economically, and like that was a motivator for me, certainly early on. And after graduating from ICC, I had a clear idea that this was the industry I wanted to be in. I transferred to Bradley, majored in finance, graduated in 2003, and that's what got me started in the industry. I started through an internship program while I was at Bradley, stayed with that firm as kind of our broker-dealer when I graduated, and that's 22, 23 years ago now.
Yeah. So how fast has life gone since then?
It flies by.
Yeah. So you have a wife and I think 2 kids, right?
Yeah. I was going to say our wedding anniversary is this August, so 20 years married, which is hard to believe. And we've got a 16-year-old sophomore son and a 14-year-old 8th grade daughter.
Mm. And so he's playing basketball as well then?
Yeah, so basketball is his passion, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah. I'm on the school board at Peoria Christian where our kids go, and you don't get paid or perks, but one of the clear advantage is I have a key to the school.
Yeah.
And so I can get into the gym at any time. And so you were there last night.
Yeah. I'm going to remember that. Josh,
there you go.
Can I in the gym?
There you go. I mean, as long as I'm there, it's cool. But yeah, we play a lot together, and it's just fun to see your son take a passion or an interest in your passion growing up.
Is your family Christian? Like, did you grow up as a Christian all the way back to how you were raised?
Yeah, I grew up going to the Elmwood United Methodist Church. My dad was the term lay minister, like he would fill in when the pastor was out of town and be the minister. My mom played the organ. I don't remember this, but I was told she was my Sunday school teacher. Mm-hmm. And so I grew up going to church every Sunday. I would say it was more of a tradition that we did as a family versus me having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. It wasn't until actually I graduated college. I had some mentors in the financial office that I had started that were elders at Grace Presbyterian at the time. And they invited Nikki and I to their Christmas program. We started attending Grace, and it was a Sunday morning altar call. Pastor Ben Johnson said, raise your hand if you've committed your life to Christ. And up until that point, that hadn't even been something that I even knew was a choice to make. I just grew up going to church.
How old were you at that point?
Probably 22, 23, something like that.
Later on.
Yeah. So always gone to church, but would say that's the point in my life where I committed my life to Christ and have been trying to follow him as best as I can ever since.
I think in business, one of the traps we can fall into is squeezing our production and the money we make into the key principle of our life. I feel like that's how America is turning in a lot of ways. And it's a trap. It's a trap because once you obtain some sort of wealth or you start to become successful, you find out how empty it truly is. And you can actually understand why people make billions of dollars and are very unsatisfied with life.
Oh, for sure.
Because a balance sheet does not dictate joy or satisfaction.
No, and it's one of the real joys of what I do today is helping individuals get clarity around their financial picture. And most of the individuals, fortunately, that we work with are doing fairly well financially, but they don't have clarity as to if they have enough to retire. Nobody's helped them put together a financial plan. But what's interesting is, once you help them realize that they've got enough, quote, enough, they start to go a whole lot deeper into what really is important, because up until that point, finances and everybody's told them they need to have a certain amount to be able to retire one day has been their target. And then, once they're able to do that, they realize that there's so much more that I need to be thinking about in terms of this transition from my career to what do I want to spend the rest of my life doing. And so, financial advisors, I think, are a generic. It's a generic term. I tell clients all the time when I first meet with them, if you've met with a financial advisor before, that doesn't mean you've met somebody that does anything that we do. Every financial advisor has a different approach, different philosophy. But ours is very much focused on more than just helping people with finances. And we can kind of talk more about my personal story as to why that is. But I would simplify it down to this is, money's important. We communicate that to clients. It's what we help them with, like you're saying. But in life, there's a resource a whole lot more valuable than money, and it's our time. And I personally believe that's the resource that's most precious that we take for granted. I take for granted, and it's a mission of mine to help our clients not do that.
So it sounds like almost life coaching along with financial planning.
It ends up being that, yeah. I mean, I was on a call yesterday actually with a client, and she was very bubbly and friendly, and I was starting to talk about where we're going to go today or yesterday in the conversation, and she's like all excited that this is going to be like a counseling session, isn't it? I was like, well, yeah, kind of. It ends up that sort of thing because we're gonna go deeper than just how much you have in your accounts.
Sure. And so when you start to have those conversations, and I feel like you're probably understanding what this person's all about, then you can kind of direct their steps with financial literacy too. set them up to do that path.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Now, I'm very much a teacher at heart. So, the idea of going into sales was not something that I looked forward to. I think I've got this negative stereotype that I've had for a long time that sales is a bad thing. And
Sure.
I've got to get that out of my head because I don't think that's accurate. You do sales, I do sales, we all do sales. But, the idea of teaching, consulting, coaching individuals, I mean, that's how I, in my mind, frame up what we do. And so, if I can help individuals understand what their options are and be educated, they're smart people. They're going to make the right decision, and that will lead to sales.
Yes.
And, but it's a very different approach than I think what sometimes people expect when they meet with a salesperson or a financial advisor, which is a heavy-handed sales pitch.
Mm-hmm.
We try to stay as far away from that as possible. Probably in large part just because I've got this head trash around not wanting to be the sales guy.
Yeah. With the advent of AI and technology and just the computers getting smarter, I mean, what's your basis on that? Like, what's your thought process on AI? Because seemingly, let's say in 10 years, as AI becomes more and more complex and more advanced, will there be a need for financial planning in the same terms as there is now?
I think it'll be even more valuable because the elements of crunching numbers that will be replaced. Technology does a lot of that now, but what's unique about helping individuals with their money that maybe is different than accounting or some other function that you could replace with technology is it's a very emotional thing for somebody to manage their money. I've told people many times you could build the most brilliant portfolio, the best investments. Imagine you had a crystal ball and you could predict where the best place would be to invest, and you built that portfolio. But in the middle of COVID, when the market's uncertain, you panic and get out. And you wait till it feels better to get back in. You're going to fail your own portfolio no matter how great it is because you sold low and bought high. And you did it not because you're not smart or that you weren't educated, but money is emotional. And people see their accounts drop. I mean, right now, it seems like every day the market's either way up or way down. That's emotional. And having a person, not a computer, not an AI model, but a person that can look them in the eyes and say, hey, Ben, you just need to sit tight. This is going to recover. Most people are going to benefit more from that than they will ever benefit from the strategy or the specific investments that either an individual or some computer model can come up with in the future. So I think AI is going to elevate the individuals that can build relationships and communicate and build trust, and is going to free them up to do more of that versus replacing them, at least in our industry.
Yeah, human nature truly doesn't change.
No.
Even though technology does, right?
Right.
I heard somebody on the cutting edge of technology and AI say that he thinks the same thing, that as AI progresses and things become more digitized, and let's say you can create a website and create videos that are all AI generated in the future that are very advanced and very real looking, people are going to look for the human connection element even on top of that. So this guy believes that sales, like human to human sales, will be even more important in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
So let's dive into your story with inspiring generosity. So just for the people watching this, it was an event. I called it kind of a speed dating of charities that operate in different sectors that you can understand who they are within a 15-minute presentation, and then give to those charities or organizations. And it was a very powerful night because oftentimes we get caught up in the minutia of life and what's for dinner, what are your kids doing, driving them from place to place, etc. But the stepping out of your own shoes and looking into the country of Ukraine with the crisis they have having there, the city of Peoria with Dream Center.
Yep.
These things are real problems that people deal with that we don't often hear or think about until we're presented with them.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there was a moment where you had that same surprise or that same kind of state of shock.
Yeah. No, it's, it's become something bigger than I even expected it would be. And as I communicated that night, I had a pretty big vision for what this could be. And to take it back to kind of its origin, as I mentioned earlier, we're working with clients, helping them um, get financial peace of mind, that they're financially secure. And then we take it a step further and help them understand what the extra capacity they have financially is. So it's not just checking the box, Ben, you can retire one day, you're good to go. It's now saying, okay, you're set to live the life you want to live financially, but here's the excess that you have that either you're going to be intentional with during your lifetime, or you're going to leave it behind one day.
Right.
And we once had a client that sat across from a table like this with me and said, Josh, I don't want to leave a legacy when I'm gone. I want to live my legacy while I'm here. And I've never forgot, her name's Carol, saying that. And I believe most of our clients feel the same way. I mean, they aren't opposed to leaving money behind one day, and many want to and have a specific goal around that. But most individuals would much rather see their money do good now, whether that's for charity or their family or whatever it might be. And so in those conversations with clients, we're helping them realize what this financial capacity is. And it often leads to one about generosity. Because I believe most people deep down are generous. They're often held back, one, because they're afraid they don't have enough for themselves. And until they're clear that they are set financially, it's hard for them to let go and give to other organizations. But once we help them see that, then we're starting to talk about, well, what are some creative ways, smart ways, tax efficient ways to give? And then the conversation progressed to something I didn't expect to happen, which was individuals starting to ask me, well, what organizations would be good to give to? And it surprised me because I don't know about you, but I feel overwhelmed with the number of good causes out there that I would like to support financially. My wife and I are trying to be as generous as possible with many of those. But I never thought individuals would not know one cause that they could give money to. And so the seed was planted, and I started thinking, well, maybe we could create an event where we bring our clients together. These are individuals that, again, have resources. They're generous. I mean, I've gotten to know them, as we've talked about, personally, and know more about who they are from a character and value standpoint. I know they would give to good causes. Let's introduce them to some of these causes and give them a chance to give. And what we did that first year in 2022 was we brought in 3 charities. As you said, I like the idea of a speed dating. You get 15 minutes to hear about the charity, but the icing on the cake that was a surprise to the audience that first time, and I think surprises people when they come for the first time, even in a second or third year, they've not been to it before, is our firm has decided to offer a match, dollar for dollar, up to a certain threshold. The first year it was $50,000. We later decided, we're just going to take 2% of our gross revenues as an organization, and that goes into the pot for matching. And so as we grow, we're going to have more money that we can give in a match. But introduce them to charities through speed dating, offer a match, and see what happens. And it's just going to grow each year, from the first year raising $191,000 to last year raising $433,000. We've got early totals from the events that we've done this year, and I think we're going to exceed the $430,000 when it's all said and done. But that's been the idea, and we've called it Inspiring Generosity because I really believe it's something completely different to inspire generosity in others than being generous yourself.
Yes,
and not that being generous isn't a great thing. Nikki and I could have given this money directly to charity, and some people feel led to do that anonymously, and I think there's a lot of great reasons for that. I just felt called to say, if we're going to give this money to charity, let's turn it into a match, and let's use it as a way to inspire people to be more generous than they would have otherwise been. And my belief is it's a concept that can be replicated in other businesses, certainly other financial advisors who are stewarding their clients' money and having these conversations anyway. But my hope is it's something that doesn't just stay within the 4 walls of Waite Financial Group, but becomes something that you see taking place all over the country.
Which is something you guys brought up during the presentation, where this has exploded into different financial groups have taken this idea and done it.
Yeah. I don't know of any that have actually done it yet, but we've had interest from financial advisors in maybe 10 or 12 states. They've heard me talk about this on other podcasts and reached out and said, hey, I want to understand more about that. How did you do it? And we do have one individual that I know is going to be creating something similar in Indianapolis. And so that'll be the first one that I'm aware of that actually has taken place. But there's been a lot of interest, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the downsides of charities in general from a giving perspective is that you don't know, everybody's heard stories, or at least I have, of you give money to an organization, but 90% of it goes to admin bloat and not the cause itself. And so that brings another level of trepidation of, is this actually going to what I'm wanting to support? Which the vetting process that you guys do in the front end negates that. Because a lot of the talk tracks that I heard from the groups that were introduced was 95% or 100% of the funds go towards the actual people you're seeing on screen.
Yeah, and I consider it today. I mean, I didn't. Well, I did think about it quite a bit on the front end, but it's a more heavy burden in a good way today to make sure that the charities that we're introducing at that event are ones that have been vetted out from that perspective and many others. And so we've just decided, Nikki and I, that we're not going to have a charity that's in front of our clients and we're offering a match to that is not one that we've personally vetted out, that we're personally supporting financially or through volunteering or both. And that makes it hard. I mean, because I've got, as you might imagine, I've got charities that have reached out now after a couple of years and said, hey, what does it take to have our organization be a part of this matching program? And I would love to highlight other charities, and we will do that, I believe, over time. But what I'm not going to do is just put a charity up there because I've heard about them and think they're a good cause, but I haven't personally been involved and chosen to support them financially myself.
Before you created Inspiring Generosity, you said there was a moment where everything blossomed, or there was a moment where you were like, this is what I want to do. I think it was a moment was it Costa Rica or was it Puerto Rico?
Dominican Republic.
Okay, I know it was 2 words.
Yeah.
So you were in the Dominican Republic. Talk through that story, because I think it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, I know it was 10 years ago this past January that I went on my first mission trip with Northwoods Church to the Dominican Republic, and had an experience there that just stuck with me that really, I would say, were the original seeds of this Inspiring Generosity initiative that took 7 years before we ever had our first event, and now we're 10 years past the mission trip. But I was on a mission trip. It was construction, work, and a medical team. And I've got no medical skills, as I've joked with audiences before. And so I was digging footing holes for a barrier wall around a medical clinic that was going to be built there in the Dominican. And I don't know if you've ever been to the Dominican Republic or third world countries like that.
I have. I went to the Dominican for my honeymoon. This was years ago. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this was a nice part of Dominican.
Yeah, this is a very different part of the Dominican. But the thing that was frustrating, I think it's frustrating for most people when you get there and you're doing construction, is just the pace at which they work and the inefficiency that we would see as Americans, where you could have a Caterpillar backhoe that digs a hole in one scoop and you spend 2 days digging that hole. I was digging those holes by shovel. But fortunately, on one of the days of the mission trip, I was asked to go with the medical team because they were going to set up a clinic out in a remote part of the countryside. And it was just an opportunity to get exposure and experience with what they did. I wasn't going to be doing anything medically related. So I was spending most of that day playing with the children, because the parents had walked long distances, sometimes through the night, with their kids to get care, and the kids needed entertained. So I'm throwing a tennis ball around or doing whatever. And it was a fun day. And but then it changed because the pastor and the interpreter that I had gotten to know came up to me and said, "Hey, do you want to go with us? We're going to walk out through the neighborhood and evangelize and talk to the people, build a relationship, tell them about Jesus. And so I said, yeah, I'm all for that. And I'm walking along these dirt roads, stick houses. I've thought often this is the closest experience I'm ever going to have to what it must have been like in Bible times. I'm just trying to imagine what that might be like. And so, the pastor's having these conversations. I'm learning about what's being said through the interpreter because I don't speak Spanish. This interpreter and I had become good friends earlier on the construction crew. He had saw my St. Louis Cardinals baseball hat and immediately it was like Tony La Russa. Like he knew who Tony La Russa was. He knew who the Cardinals were. And
he's Dominican.
He's Dominican and he knows baseball because baseball is a big deal in the Dominican. And so his name is Elvis. If you wrote it out, you would read it Elvis. So it's kind of funny just in that. But Elvis and I had developed this friendship. He's the interpreter that day. We get to the end of the road. We go into this final house, and there's this elderly lady that is thin, frail. I'm 6'4". She's maybe 5 feet tall, and very hospitable. She offers us coffee, food, and she wants to be a good host. And the pastor starts talking to her, and immediately it gets heated. And the prior conversations were very friendly. This is very intense. She's asking for something, and he's explaining. I later learn that he can't give her what she wants. And what she wanted, as Elvis told me, was money. We'd been told you shouldn't give money when you go out on the mission trip. It sets a bad precedent. All those things make sense to me. And so Elvis was like, she's asking for money. We can't give her money. And I'm like, well, what does she need the money for? And he says, well, she wants to build an outhouse because her current outhouse is down the hillside behind her shack. And at her age, she's really struggling physically to be able to walk down the hillside to use the restroom and come back up. And so just things that you and I would never even think would be an issue. And so the pastor's telling her we can't give her money. She calms down. We eventually are leaving. And as we walk out, I look to the side and I see Elvis reach into his pocket and give her a handful. Like I imagine it's everything he's got. And as an interpreter, he's well paid for a Dominican, but he's living on a couple dollars a day. That's well paid. And so he's giving her all of his money. And I don't think he knew anybody saw it. I don't think anybody saw it except me. But that moment planted the seed for me of inspiring generosity. And it's because I witnessed him do an act of generosity. It wasn't anonymous. It wasn't secret. Now, he tried to keep it secret because he wasn't supposed to do it. But if I'd not seen that, I don't think we would be having these events, raising money for great causes. And
does he know that now? Does he know? He
does. Yeah, I've since been back and connected with him on a separate mission trip with our family. And he and I have developed a good rapport. So he actually was messaging me this week on WhatsApp. We've helped him take a couple mission trips, he and his wife, in the Dominican and go to other countries. And so he was sending me some pictures of the recent mission trip he's been on. But he knows what that story has led to. He remembers that day as he communicates to me, and he didn't think anybody saw it, but it was a pretty moving experience for him. And obviously he unloaded everything he had financially. So that's the trip that kind of got it all started, if you say.
Yeah. I lived in India for 4 months when I was in college. I traveled abroad there. And if India, which one of the charities spoke about India as well. Yep. And it's people don't really understand you don't understand India until you've been there, I think, because it's 4 times our population and 1/3 the size. So if you multiply our population by 4 and then squeeze us into the East Coast, that's what it feels like. It's very tight. There's no space. There's no space anywhere. It seems like just people are living on top of each other in all sorts. But in certain places of the city, there is the untouchables, which are people who are born into a caste, because they have a caste system. I think there's like 7 castes. And if you're born into the bottom rung, the 7th caste, they have arranged marriage there. So you cannot move into a different caste. It's just like you're the forgotten people.
Okay.
So your parents choose who you get married to. It's that's the popular thing to do. So parents from the 5th caste will not choose a spouse in the 7th caste. So these people are essentially born into poverty, have almost no way to get out, and they're seen as kind of the untouchable people in the culture. And so when you see a slum like that in reality and know how many people are truly living that way, I came back with a sense of just gratitude for my life that I was born here. Because 5% of the population is American, and the opportunities we have here are nearly unlimited.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I had similar thoughts as I came back from the Dominican, and was like, I want to share that with my family and my kids, but I'm like, there's no way for me to communicate what I experienced.
It's so hard.
It's so hard.
Mm-hmm.
And it's why, I mean, we went back to the Dominican. When I've reconnected with Elvis, it was because Nikki and I took the kids back there, because that was one of my goals when I came back, because at some point I want to take the kids on a mission trip. I just can talk about it all day long, but until they're there and they see it, I don't think anybody appreciates what they have here in the United States at the same level. And so, I agree completely.
Yeah. It's something that's so eye-opening and devastating at the same time. You feel like, what can be done about this, right? And then countries have a lot of corruption. They have a lot of things happening that you don't really truly understand. So it becomes challenging because you want to help, but then finding the organization that's going to help accomplish those tasks is very difficult as well.
Well, and that's kind of back to our event and introducing the people that come to these charities. I heard a quote once that the number one reason why individuals don't give to charity is because of a lack of a connection to the cause. It's not because they don't have the money to give. It's not because they don't want to give the money to good causes. But people don't give simply because they don't have a connection to the organization. And so, the idea of this event is speed dating, as you called it, 15 minutes where these organizations share their heart, share what they do, have videos like you saw, but connect people to the cause, whether it's in India or Peoria or Ukraine, so that people actually get a feel for what they're giving towards versus an organization, whatever the name is, but the connection's not there at the heart level, and that's what we're trying to accomplish with these events.
So you're facilitating connection to the charities.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's go to a subject of faith, and you said that you raised your hand in an altar call. You said Ben Johnson was the pastor.
Yep.
And what was that like? Take me back to 23 years old when you're a young whippersnapper. Are you dating your wife at the time?
Yeah, she's there with me. So we same time, both not knowing that we were each doing it, going to raise our hands.
You were dating at the time?
We were dating at the time. Yeah. I think we might've been engaged. I really don't know for sure. I wish I could be one of those people that said on March 12th, 22 or whatever, I committed my life to Jesus, but I don't know what that exact date was. But no, we had been attending the church for a while, and not ever attended a church that there's an altar call that you're asked to pray the sinner's prayer and close your eyes and raise your hand if you prayed, and so that was a first for that experience for me, and fortunately, I was there, and Nikki and I both raised our hands, and they give you an opportunity to come down to the front after the church service is over and pray with one of the pastors, and start to get you plugged in more to the church. And so that's what happened. I think a lot of churches across the country are doing those sort of things, hoping that sort of thing takes place. I know it happens, fortunately, pretty frequently at Northwoods where we attend, but that was the beginning of the official journey. Yeah. But the background and the story the foundation had been laid with the example of my parents and the commitment to going to church, even though it was more of a ritual and a tradition versus a relationship.
Sure. I remember when I first, so I got saved when I was 22 years old, 23 years old. And my pastor gave me a book. It's called The Purple Book. if you're familiar with it. It's got like 9 chapters, I think. But the first 3 chapters are about like sin and salvation. Like, what does it mean to be baptized? What does it mean to commit your life to Christ? Like very basic foundational principles. And I was reading along this guidebook, and it references, obviously it takes in scripture, but you have to write down the scriptures. And this is my first time in my life opening the Bible and reading it, because I thought it was like more of a historical document or something, really boring text.
Yeah.
And I'm reading the New Testament, mostly read words about Jesus and what he says, and the Apostle Paul and disciples and what they're doing, and how extreme the Bible is. It's an extreme book.
Yeah.
And I was in a Starbucks, and I'm reading this passage. And I remember, Josh, I looked up from the book, and I looked around, and I was like, nobody knows about this. Like, people are walking around not knowing this exists. And it's so powerful that these disciples, like the scripture about a man who finds a treasure in his yard and sells everything, right? And says like, this is my life now.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. I was like, this is the most important thing I've ever read in my life. And I must dedicate my life toward it. You know, my life has been difficult in a lot of ways. It's had a lot of struggle, just like anyone. But that foundational principle of like selling out for God and trying to be the best version of myself for God, it permeates through my life. And I can always tell when I get off track. When I get off track and I'm not pursuing godly goals, there's an emptiness about life. That it's like even if I'm accomplishing my goals, or even if I'm succeeding in these certain avenues, if my relationship with God is not strong, it feels very empty. Alternatively, if my life feels out of place, if I have a connection with Jesus, I'm just like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's that focus on the bigger picture that you're like, the scripture, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. It's just like,
what a relief.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
It's the only thing, Josh, that gives me this sense of peace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's so true. I think like most of us, I've had my moments of mountain peak, at the top of the mountain and down in the valley, and feeling like I've failed miserably. And the reality is, God's with you in all the moments.
That's right.
I had a friend tell me once that we will look back on our life and think most fondly of the valley versus the mountaintop, because that's when we felt closest to God. And I sometimes get frustrated at why I'm that way. It's like when things get going well, I just admit I tend to think I've got this figured out. I'm not leaning on God as much, and then I'm humbled and I'm way down in the valley. And it's like, oh, here we go again. at least you're still there, Jesus. You haven't left me, but I'm still trying to figure that one out.
I think it's just human nature. It's how we're built, that we tend to feel the most pride when we're on top of the mountain, but the grace is given to those who are humble in heart, and I have to remind myself of that every day, of like, when my life is going perfect and I feel like, oh, I can chill a little bit, but it's like, man, it's just, God wants us to seek him in all moments. Yeah. And it's so easy for us to just be like, I think I've got it figured out now.
One of the things I started doing this year, just because I think, like a lot of us, my phone is a distraction. And in my quiet time in the morning, my mind is racing as soon as I look at my phone.
Agreed.
I've got to the point where I don't check my email, personal or work, on my phone. My phone's off limits for emails, because for me, it is a constant tug that pulls me away from being connected with people.
Yeah.
But when I get up in the morning, ever since January, I just have a reminder that pops up that says, no Bible, no phone. And so if I look at my phone, that's the first thing it says. And so I go to my spot in the house and do my quiet time. And I'm not perfect at it, but that's my way to stay connected from the beginning of the day, and not letting the world into my mind too quickly.
Yeah. I have to work on that. My wife can attest. It's so hard because it's an addictive, it's you feel like you're being productive when you're checking and writing emails, or you're responding to people. And also, I'm not sure if you feel this way too, but when people connect with when they message me through Facebook or on my text messages or through email, I feel beholden to respond fast.
Yeah.
Because that's how I've built my business and it's how I've operated for so long.
Yeah.
And so, but the reality is that there's very few problems that need immediate attention. Very few.
Yep.
Maybe in a meteor event or, a hailstorm. But there's very few things that need my pressing attention all the time.
Yeah.
But I treat it as such.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. I mean, there's an assessment. I don't know if you're familiar with Working Genius.
No.
Yeah, Patrick Lencioni and his group, the Table Group, created this assessment called Working Genius. Assesses you like other personality assessments do, but through the filter of how work gets done. And they would say that the first step in completing any project is you have to wonder or ask yourself questions like, what problem do we need to solve? And so there's wonder, and then there's invention. And you got to invent a solution for the problem that you're identifying. Once you've invented something, there's the genius of discernment. So you've got to be able to evaluate, is this really a good idea, or do we need to go back to the drawing board? But once you know you've got a good idea, then you need to galvanize it and rally the team and get it done. Once that's moves on, you've got the folks that are the supporters that help make things happen. They call that enablement. And where I'm going with all of this is the final step is tenacity, like getting stuff done, checking things off. Yeah, I'm a tenacity person.
Same.
And so to have a text message come in the little red bubble above my app is like drives me nuts. I've got to reply to it. And I've tried my best to like set up my environment to prevent that stuff. There's no red bubbles on any app on my phone with the exception of phone calls and text messages. So I don't want to see anything like telling me, oh, you need to check that or you need to check it off the list.
You can feel out of control if that's the thing. It's like your phone is controlling your attention. That's
exactly right. I mean, I wrote a blog a couple years ago on this idea of who controls your technology. Do you control your technology, or does your technology control you?
Technology controls me in a lot of ways.
It does me too. I'm trying to set myself up to limit that by no notifications, no noises. On my computer, on my phone, like I don't want any noises. The only thing that my phone will do is vibrate if somebody's calling me. And even with that, I have to then say, now I'm just not going to check my email, because even though there's no bubble, I know there's emails there. Like they're there, they're waiting for me. And so I got to go open it up so I can respond and check it off. And so it's just a constant battle. But I think in a lot of ways that battle is pulling us away from our connection to God.
And connection to others.
Well,
right?
In connection to others, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the pull of the addictive nature, I heard somebody describe bubbles and the notifications as pulling a lottery or pulling a slot machine, because you don't truly, like for Facebook, for instance, if you don't have notifications enabled, every time you open the app, you're pulling the slot machine to say how many likes or how many things did I get, which triggers dopamine, which is what slot machines do. That there's something good that could come from this. Yep. And we're fighting against technology actively to remain human in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
To remain in our natural, 50 years ago, they didn't have this stuff, right? And I was thinking about that. People must have felt more connected to their neighbors, to their friends, to their environment. One of my commitments this year was to be closer with my neighbors, because my neighbors are going to live next to me for a long time. Mm-hmm. I should probably know these people.
Yeah.
And my kids are growing up with their kids. I should probably get to know them. And in a lot of ways, in the past several years, I don't really know my neighbors. I don't know their names. I don't know what they do. I don't know what their kids are like. And that's sad. Yeah. And I should change that. That was my initial tenacious response, is like, I'm going to go talk to these people. And it's been a tremendous thing to get to know them. I was talking to a couple of them yesterday, and that's such a old school, common practice that we've gotten away from.
Yeah, forgot about it. Yeah. Well, and as you were saying that, I was thinking, I mean, that sort of thing happens in my own house. Like we're on our phones, we're doing whatever and not having conversations, whether it's my wife and I, our kids, and so it's just a constant battle. But
Yeah.
one of the other things that I'm really passionate about, in addition to this idea of inspiring generosity, is the idea of living an intentional life.
Yes.
And what we're really talking about is being intentional.
That's right.
In all aspects of life, whether it's with your technology or what have you. That idea for me is rooted in really the most challenging thing I've ever faced in my 44 years, which was 21 years ago, losing my dad to pancreatic cancer. And it was November, Thanksgiving time. He was diagnosed February of 2004. Yeah, so 21 years ago.
Wow.
He passed away. I was just out of college. My brother was still in college. My sister was still in high school. I mean, it was really tough, as you can imagine. And we've all likely had things like that we've had to work through. But the silver lining for me, as I've been able to process and reflect back on it, is this idea that time's our most valuable resource. We don't know how much of it we have. Every day that goes by, you can't get it back. And so, what can I do about that? Well, I can be really intentional about how I'm going to spend my time. I'm going to be really intentional about what's pulling at my attention, because if I'm spending time with you, but my intention is somewhere else because my phone's tugging at me, and again, I'm preaching to myself here because that's what I'm guilty of. That's not time being as intentional as you could be. And
Sure.
so, it's something that permeates through everything that, we do as an organization, back to our business. And that's a lot of what our conversations with clients are about is, we're helping them with their money, but eventually it's, life's about more than money. I mean, it's how are you going to spend your time? And sometimes people need to know that they're going to be okay financially so that they can focus on how they're going to spend their time. But no, I think there's, unfortunately, with technology, so many things today that tug at our time, that keep us from connecting with our neighbors, keep us from connecting with our kids that are in our own house. And I'm just on a mission to fight against it. But I often feel like I'm losing that battle.
I just turned 36 a few weeks ago, and that's twice the age of high school. So like you graduate high school at 18. I was thinking about this with my buddy. I graduated college at 22, and I'm 14 years removed from graduating college, and it feels like it was yesterday.
So I'm twice the age of college graduation then.
There you go. So you're 44.
Yeah.
And every time I turn another year old, it feels like the last year just went by so fast. And when you talk to people, we get a tremendous experience of talking to people who are older all the time, But when I ask them about life, every one of them has the same remark, which is you're going to blink twice and your life will be gone. And it does, those seeds that are planted makes you want to live more intentionally, or you just take it as, well, life's going to move fast and that's just what it'll be. But in the context of Scripture, we are commanded to live intentionally, right? We're commanded to do this because time is our only resource, and our soul is our only thing we can truly give. So what are we going to give our life to?
Yeah.
And every time I hear an older person talk, they're just like, Ben, you're going to blink twice and be 65, 75 years old. I was on the golf course yesterday, Josh, and I played terrible. I played so bad.
That's why I don't golf.
Yeah, I played so bad. And my friend and I were both playing bad. I mean, outrageously bad. And I told them, I just heard this, that imagine life as a 70-year-old. You get transported back in time to 36 and you're playing terrible at golf. Like that one perspective says like, okay, I'm not having that bad of a time because I can move my body. I can see the ball.
Yeah.
I can hear the birds, as opposed to being, older and probably can't move as well.
Yeah.
So man, having that perspective, I feel like I need to do that more often.
Well, and I think, I hope others don't have to lose a parent to have that perspective like burned into their brain. But that's burned into my brain. Losing my dad is that permanent reminder that this may be the only day I have. I need to make the most of it. Or at least I'm going to try my best to make the most of it. And And the beauty of being a financial advisor and starting when you're 21 years old is all of your clients are older than you. And so I've spent 23 years talking to individuals that are all older than me. And I've commented on the blessing that is, to the point you're making, is just incredibly valuable to hear from people that are further along in their journey, what they did well, what they wish they would have done differently. But often it's the reminder you're talking about of before you know it, your kids are going to be grown and out of the house. Like that's the one that's really relevant to me right now.
I bet.
And I wrote a blog a couple weeks ago on the reality that we just got back from spring break and we only have 2 left. Because our son's a sophomore, and once he goes to college, there's no guarantee he'll have the same week of spring break as our daughter. Like we only have 2 spring breaks left before this looks different. It's just that sense of urgency to be intentional now. I think it's easy for all of us to say, well, I'll do that later. I'll get to it down the road. I've got a lot of life left to do these things. I'm sure my dad thought he had a lot of life left. And he left this earth at 56.
56. And it was a shock in your family.
Yeah.
He wasn't sick for a long period before that.
Just sat at the kitchen table, November of that year, and 3 months later he's gone.
Wow. I'm sorry to hear that.
I appreciated it. The other beauty to that is it was his example in his final days of living. If you remember or ever saw the little booklet, The Daily Bread.
Yes.
You familiar with that?
I am.
So I still remember my dad having us read him The Daily Bread while he's at the hospital in OSF. Got days, maybe weeks left to live. Like that was what I observed. And at that time, I had not committed my life to Christ. That altar call was after my dad passed away. And I believe today that if he had a choice of living longer, but me not choosing to follow Jesus or going to heaven when he did, and that being a catalyst to me committing my life to Christ, that he would have made the choice that he would have left this earth early. And so, to me, it was sad at the time, but looking back today, there's so much to be thankful for because of just who he was, his example that he was for my siblings and I, and now this just kind of burning sense of don't waste the moment.
Yeah,
be intentional with your time.
I started the roofing company in 2020, in August of 2020, during COVID.
Great time to start a business.
It's kind of funny.
It's worked out well.
Yeah, it's worked out really well. I can't even believe where we're at now, to be honest. Like when I stop and think. But when I started, Josh, if you know anything about roofing in Illinois, the weather turns in November or December.
I'm assuming you don't do a lot of roofing. Yeah.
So I hired people. I started the company in August, which is the 8th month of the year, and I had about 3 months to roof. And so if we were thinking from a logical, objective perspective, you would never do that. But I had such a burning desire to do this, and like right now, I have to do this right now, that it it catapulted our company forward to like, we have to succeed. And it's kind of the same thing you were just talking about. It's like those certain moments. I was unemployed at the time, which was a big driver. I didn't have a job, and I didn't want to work for somebody else. So I was like, I'm going to start a company. I just don't know what it was. And if I had not had been unemployed and going through COVID and all the craziness happening, I'm not sure if I'd be here right now. So to your friend's point, I don't know, looking back at the last 5 years, those moments in the valleys are some of my absolute favorite to look back on.
Yep.
I don't know if I'd want to live them again because they were so hard, but man, am I fond of those memories because those are the times you change the most.
Yeah. Well, and I've gotten better at just appreciating the moment when I'm down there because I've got so many examples now. The losing my father and becoming a Christian is the most prominent one, but I've got so many examples of in those tough moments, God's teaching me, shaping me, molding me, like something good is going to come out of this is my mindset.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not always excited that I'm down in the valley in the moment, but I try to keep reminding myself that God's not going to waste this,
No.
and He's taking me here for a reason, and something good's going to come out of it, and it's even the smallest glimpse of the light at the end of the tunnel. But if I can hold on to that little glimpse of, okay, this is going to come out okay, and I'm going to be thankful at the end for having gone through it. It's helped me in the moments more recently where I've been back there and trying to pull myself back up.
That's faith, right? Like
Exactly.
speaking to the unaccomplished and the impossible, and saying, well, I am, like that's what God is. And so modeling that behavior is, it's fun when a plan works out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's go to the future of Waite Financial, and this is now your 4th year of doing Inspiring Generosity.
Our 4th event was this year, and so it's the beginning of our 4th year of raising funds for charities.
Mm-hmm. And so the future is just bigger, bolder, more charities involved, potentially larger venue.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I really believe God's the one that gave me this idea. I've got a good network of individuals that have poured into me, that have helped me think through this. I've got a team. I'm not sure. I think we talked a little bit about Convene, but really thankful for my Convene team as they've helped me kind of discern what this should look like from the get-go, and honoring God in the process. And I've started to push back on at least the idea in my head of just bigger to be bigger. But that's my tendency, is just keep thinking bigger, dreaming bigger, and going after it. And I think that's good for a lot of things. But I do believe this is going to get bigger. I just don't want to feel pressure to be bigger just because.
Yeah.
Yep. We hosted a second event this year in North Carolina. So we've got now 4 years of hosting events in Peoria. We've got a group of clients in the Raleigh area that were excited about us coming there, and helped us identify a really high quality faith-based charity. And so last Wednesday we hosted our first event there, and it was really successful. And so I do see it expanding to other parts of the country for Waite Financial Group and our clients, but I still think the exponential multiplier is other businesses, other financial advisors like this one in Indianapolis that take the idea, and I'm happy to give them the playbook on how to put on an event, how do you organize it, how do you promote it. I mean, we've documented a lot of those things to try to make it easy for the next person to replicate it. And from that perspective, I mean, I'll likely never know what good in terms of dollars raised, what it really is, when you start just having other people taking an idea and running with it. But I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I just think it's something that does a lot of good for the organizations, but maybe more importantly, does a lot of good for the people that are there, that are inspired to a new level of generosity, that it changes them internally.
Certainly.
Because they've kind of taken a step of faith. And I don't know about you, but I've had some of those moments where I was feeling led to give to a cause, but I was really hesitant. And I decided to press in and follow the Lord's leading with whatever that was. And ultimately I was the one that was blessed the most because of it. And I believe that's what's happening with our clients and those that attend, that choose to give whatever they might give to these causes. And so from that perspective, I think the vision is really big. I just don't want to all of a sudden feel pressure to be bigger, just to feel bigger, because I think that'll start to take the fun out of it.
Yeah, 100%. My wife and I had a long conversation because we live in Normal. We had 40 minutes back home after the event, and we were just talking about just how blessed we are to be driving our vehicle, to have air conditioning, to have the simple creature comforts that we enjoy, versus what we just saw in the presentation of women, children, and man, I don't want to get into the specifics, but it just seems like there's so much, it seems like there's a lot of pain in the world, and we do not see it every day. Even in Peoria, having Andy speak from Dream Center, and the needs for the Dream Center right in our backyard.
Yeah.
Like when you hear those things, it makes you want to do something.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm. So let me take a minute here. Your wife, how has she played a role in, let me tell you a personal anecdote, but my wife often shapes how I think about things because she has better intuition a lot of the times.
Mm-hmm.
Is your wife the same? Has she helped in organizing this event and kind of framing your brain around it?
Yeah, absolutely. If we come back to the working genius, right? Wonder, invention, discernment, galvanizing, enablement, tenacity. So, they would say you have two geniuses. All of us do. So my two are wonder. Like I'm constantly in my head asking questions. What about this? Should we try that? Mm-hmm. And then tenacity. And so if you put those two together and you don't do anything in between, you think of things that you think are a good idea, and then you go out and do them, and they don't usually work out.
You're describing me.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, maybe you're a wonder tenacity guy. So fortunately for me, and it sounds like your wife might be the same, is Nikki's geniuses include discernment. And so she'd be the first one to tell you that there's been a number of ideas that I had. She told me they would be bad. I decided to do them anyway because I'm tenacious and I just wanted to go after whatever I'd thought of. And
maybe in a small way, prove your wife that your discernment's strong too.
Unfortunately, that was not the outcome. And she would kindly say, I told you so. You shouldn't have done that. And so, back to this event and frankly, most of the things that we are doing that are working well today as a business, they are because I had an idea, and I've learned, and now I have working genius as a language to speak it through. As Nikki's got a gift of discernment, and so I bring it to her and other people in my life that I know that's their skill set before I get too far down the road. And so she's been critical in just the whole coming up with the event and how we do it, and she's got a knack for hosting in design and style. And so, the evening, everything from the centerpieces on the table to, programs and the food. And, she does all of that. And so, she's a big part of it, but the part that most people don't see is the part where I'm saying, well, what about this? What do you think about that? I think this would work really well. What do you think? And I'm still working on listening to her more often than not. That tenacity piece of me just wants to go when I really think I've got a good idea. But for sure, she's been a big part of it.
When God creates us, there's just no person besides Jesus who's got all the gifts. And so in strong personalities like ourselves and business owners and self-starters, like I feel like we can climb the mountain. That's my initial thought. It's like, I can do it.
Yeah.
But I'm hamstrung by my own deficiencies. And so surrounding myself with my team, I have a really good operator and a financial analyzer, like an analyzer and an operator who are very good at, I bring up an idea. Okay, how would we actually execute this? Let's analyze this situation. And I've had to just learn how to lead from that position as opposed to, this is where we're going, get on board. Right. And that just comes with maturity as a leader. How rewarding has it been to see your kids grow into the ages that they're at now?
Oh man, it's super cool. I'm really blessed. We've got two amazing kids that love the Lord and in many ways challenge me in my growth spiritually, just in what I see them doing and the habits that they've created. But I've said this now all along the way. Whatever stage of life we're in is the best, and it just keeps getting better. And so I hope that is something I'm saying 22 years from now is this next phase is the best. But our kids are great. Ben and I certainly connect on the sports level. He's a sports lover, and so he and I have that in common. Ava is more of the quiet introvert, which I can relate with also. More of the thinker, likes to read, those sort of things. But, I'm trying as best as I can to, back to the idea of intentionality, make the most of the time that I have before they're out of the house. Even something as simple as, when they were younger, Nikki would ask me if I could take them to school because she had something going on. And I'm embarrassed to admit that I viewed that at the time as an inconvenience.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had more important things to do than take the kids to school, was my mindset. Today, I take Ava to school once a week, even though she doesn't want me to. She'd much rather go with her mom. But I'm like, no, this is like golden time in the car. I'm going to, at some point, miss being able to just ride and talk to her about the day. And I've now lost that with Ben because he's 16 and he drives himself. And so it's like the sense of urgency is there, but, just really grateful that we've got the kids we have, and they're great.
Mm. Is it Benjamin? Is his full name?
It is. Yep.
How did you guys come up with that name?
Great question. So, Nikki's,
I'm a little biased.
Yeah, it's a great name. Nikki's high school best friend was Ben. And before we got married, he passed away from brain cancer. And so after that, she really wanted to name, if we had a boy, our son after her friend Ben. And so it's Benjamin Walter, and Walter was my dad's name. So it's got a little bit of Nikki's relationship with her friend that she lost, and my dad.
Have you seen the movie The Secret Life of Walter Mitty?
I don't think so, but I think I've seen a preview for it, or I know that title.
It's a movie from about 10 years ago, probably, from Ben Stiller. Yeah, you should really watch it. It's a lot of this conversation ties into the meaning of the movie. Okay. I won't give away the plot, but it's a phenomenal film.
The Secret Life of Walter
Mitty. The Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
Mitty. Okay.
M-I-T-T-Y.
Okay.
But it's basically about adventure and living your life to its fullest potential, and not dying in the mundane. But it's a tremendous film. You have to watch it.
Well, I'll add it to the list. I get razzed all the time for my lack of movie acumen,
like pop culture.
Yeah, I'm the person that's not seen a lot of the movies that everybody would think you're crazy if you've not seen the movie. So I'm not surprised that I haven't seen it. But that's the type of movie that I would love. Yeah,
you have to watch it. It's a tremendous movie. I watched it with my kids not too long ago, and they just loved the movie. Okay. I think it's PG, close to PG, maybe PG-13 I think it's PG. Great movie. But yeah, kids, I have a 10, 9, and 9-month-old.
Oh, wow.
So two older girls, one younger boy. And it's so fun to have a baby in the house now with the age gap. I was
about to say, that's the same example of talking to people that are older than you and asking for their wisdom. Like, you've got the wisdom of having done it with the two older ones, and now you get to apply that to the youngest.
Yes. And I'm a different person at 36 than I was when I was 26, right? So it's almost like they're getting two different parents because I've grown so much in the past decade. And he's a boy as well. So I'm already like, listen, man, I'm going to start weight training.
So what's his name?
Luca.
And
then Esme and Violet are the oldest.
Okay.
And so it's just, it's a tremendous, raising kids is something that gives you such tremendous perspective about your own life.
Oh yeah.
Because you imagine your own parents in those same scenarios. They had to provide for their kids just like I'm doing now.
Yeah. It's making me think about, just this week I wrote on an experience I had with Ava last summer. She and I went out to Northern California to a camp called JH Ranch. It's a Christian camp, just a phenomenal organization. I couldn't endorse it more highly, but it was a father-daughter camp. So dads there with their daughters. And we had this experience that they called the trust walk. The girls got blindfolded. We're in the woods. Now, they have no idea what we're doing. They've not been given the instructions. But the dads were given the instructions to go grab your daughter. You're going to lead her through the woods to the destination. just the catch is there's 3 phases to the trust walk through the woods. The first phase is you have your hands on your daughter's shoulders behind her, guiding her on the path. That's supposed to replicate what it's like when your kids are really young and you're hands-on and you're in control of everything they're doing. But at some point, your kids, usually teenagers, are going to become an age where they're more independent. And so that second phase of this trust walk was you take your hands off and you can just speak. So 2 steps forward, 1 step to the left. There's a tree right in front of you. We got to get around the tree. You can verbally coach her through the woods, but you no longer can touch her. You can't guide her with your hands. And then you get to the third phase, and they tell you when you get to this point, you're not allowed to say anything unless your child asks you a question. Simulating what it's going to be like one day when your child leaves the house.
Sure.
And you no longer can be the person nor should you be the person telling them what to do. You've got to hope that there's a relationship established there where they want your input and they ask you for advice. But Ava doesn't know any of this. And so we're walking through the woods. My hands go off.
So she doesn't know the instructions.
She doesn't know the instructions. She's blindfolded and she's over where she's going to start at while we're getting the instructions as the dads.
I see.
And so the hands come off and I'm still talking to her. But then we get to the point where I'm not allowed to say anything. And she just stops and is silent. Yeah, I'm going to cry. Talking about it. It's just tears are rolling down my cheeks because I'm like, wow, there's going to be a point where I can't save her. I can't help her. She's got to ask me for help. And I don't know how long she was silent for. It felt like hours. It was probably a couple minutes. And then eventually she says, "Dad, are you there?" Like, "Yeah, I'm here." Waits a little bit because I can't say anything else. She's got to ask me questions. Can I step forward? Like, yeah, you can step forward. And now we're making our way through the woods, but I'm not giving her any advice other than answering the questions. And it's meant to teach parents, what that journey is going to be like, the journey of parenting and letting them go. And eventually they're out on their own. But there's so many parallels to our walk with Christ, right? And God's there, but we don't always go to him and ask for help. And how many times is he there just waiting for us to ask for guidance, and we're failing and struggling at whatever element of life we're at. And it's just really powerful. And at the Inspiring Generosity event, I referenced that very briefly, but the quote from J.H. Ranch was this concept of, I heard and I forgot. I saw and I remembered. I did and I understood. Until I actually did that trust walk, I didn't understand at the level I understand today how hard it's going to be to have the kids leave the house. And not because I don't want them to go on and pursue what they want to do in life, but the reality is I'm not always going to be able to be there. You're not always going to be able to be there to protect your daughters when they're out in the world. And so, that, I don't know how I got on that tangent.
That's
but
beautiful.
But it's fresh on my mind because we talked about it at the Inspiring Generosity event, and it was something I wrote about just recently. But the idea of doing to experience is real. I mean,
we don't in especially male culture, we don't really talk about these things unless, to your point about your father, you don't really talk about things unless there's a catastrophe happening. And even then, maybe we don't even talk about our feelings about it.
Right.
But the more that I can dialogue with people about their experiences, the more it helps me. Even this podcast, understanding what people are thinking is a tremendous eye-opener. Because you don't know what it's going to be like until you get to the point where your kids may not want to spend time with you as much as my kids do now.
Yeah.
You know, I'm pushing that day off hopefully as far as I can.
Yeah, I hate to break it to you, but there will be a day. I've already
Don't tell me,
experienced
Josh.
that
You're not cool anymore.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely not cool to Ava. I think I've still got a little bit of a coolness to Ben just because we've got the sports connection. But yeah, it definitely changes, and that's super cool that you've got almost like a second chance to relive those moments through a different lens.
Yes,
because you now know that those phases are going to end.
Yeah.
And you can cherish them more.
Yeah.
Is what I would imagine.
I do. I cherish so many of the moments I have with my daughters. And our thing, we go to the arcade quite a bit. And they're young, right? But we go to the arcade and we play games. But I take great joy in this, Josh, that they see me as like the game master. You know? They're like, Dad, can you beat this game and get us more points? And I'm like, of course. There's a game called Crossy Road, if you're familiar.
No.
Very simple, but it's a chicken crossing a road.
Okay.
So just imagine that. And there's cars driving and you have to choose the moment where they cross.
Yeah.
And it's not a difficult game, but you have to get to a certain point level, call it 100 or 150 to win the 500 ticket bonus.
Yeah.
And I downloaded this game at home and I played it something like for, a couple hours. So I got pretty good at it. So when we go back to the arcade, they're like, Dad, come on. And I tell them like, hey, you have to cheer me on as I do this. And so they're like, Dad, go. But clearly they have an end motive where if you get enough points, you can buy like prizes on the wall, that dictate how many points you have. And so I'm teaching them about investing and saving through this process.
Yeah.
Because every time we go, they're like, let's just spend it all. And I'm like, what would be cool? If we save it and come back and then we build up like this massive amount of points and then we can buy whatever we
get
want.
The bigger prize.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I'm teaching them these principles and I'm like, guess what? There's this thing called interest where, if you wait a little bit and you don't spend it, it will grow automatically. This has nothing to do with the game, but more so money, you know. But just these moments that I'm doing, I'm trying to be very intentional with how I talk to my kids and what do I talk about and like teaching them life lessons through the mundane. That's like parenting 101, right?
Yeah.
But in my own experience, I don't think my parents really thought about that or like lived like that. And that's nothing against them.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think that they were intentional in the way that they talked about certain things.
Yeah.
And with the advent of the internet, I get the coaches of you and YouTube. I can watch people and how they raise their children, which kind of shapes my experience, which they didn't have. They just had their neighbors and church friends or whoever. So, I don't know how I got on that either. It's just that the intentional living is also like, to your point about people not knowing what charities they give to, we don't really know how to parent our kids unless we invest into learning about how to parent here,
Yeah.
So with the advent of the internet, we get to learn about all these different things and then we get to choose our path through it. And in 2025, there's just no excuse for not knowing what to do unless you don't put in the time to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And at the same time, I had a mentor that would often say, Josh, most people know how to live a perfect life. The problem's not knowing.
Yeah.
It's doing. And it's both.
So true.
It's both. And today you're right. I mean, the knowledge is out there, but it's still hard to do it.
It is.
Right. I mean, it
takes putting your phone down.
It takes putting your phone down. Yeah, exactly. Shutting off the notifications, not checking your email, all the things that keep pulling at our time. But no, I think that's great.
Yeah. Well, to be respectful of your time, we'll wrap this up. But I always like to invite people to give the audience something. And so whatever you'd like to say, this is your time to speak to the people watching this.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's a lot of pressure to provide something that's really valuable. But, I'd start by just saying thank you. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
The reality is, I don't think most of us have many opportunities to just tell their story. And you're giving individuals an opportunity to tell their story. And to the extent what I've shared is helpful for some of your listeners, I'm grateful for that. But, that's probably nothing that I would say other than what I've already communicated around the idea of maximizing your time. Right? And just, hopefully most people don't have to go through losing somebody and having this permanent kind of thought of, man, I wish I had more time with my dad. I'd give up all the money I have right now to have more time with my dad. Mm. And that emotion that is still there today, 21 years later, is what I'm thankful for, because I'm not going to, as best as I can, I'm not going to waste the time that I have with my kids or with whoever I'm having the opportunity to be with today. It's with you. And so I would just encourage your listeners to try to find, a way to have that level of perspective and passion for making the most of your time, because it's all we got.
It is all we have. Yeah. Josh, it's been tremendous getting to know you over the past few weeks. And Sandy Glover, I want to say personal shout out if she watches this. Just thank you. The Inspiring Generosity event just really refocused my wife and I's time and our conversation towards what's important. And I'm so thankful to attend, and also just the bonus networking opportunity I got with all the people that are in the same vein as what we're talking about. It's always good to be surrounded with people who think the same, if it's something greater than yourself. So thank you for doing that. And what you're doing is powerful, Josh. So if you haven't heard that already, it's powerful and it's impacting people.
I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for coming on, man.
All right. Thanks, man.
Yeah, this has been Tiger Den episode 24. Josh Waite, thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.